All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Vanderbilt fans of all ages, Justin is excited, smiling, ready to go. Another spring football roster preview. Actually, practice has already started. Today was the first day, but we got a little tied up last week. Couldn't do any of these videos, so we are back this week, providing you with some roster breakdown content here. So here we go. We're gonna pretty much combine pretty much all the defensive backs, safeties, cornerbacks, all in one little swoop here for this one. So that's where we're gonna start here. Obviously, want to thank you guys. We're over 300 subscribers. I think we're at 305, 306 now on our YouTube channel. So appreciate you guys for subscribing to our channel. Like I said, we've been putting post game pressers and media availability. Like we just put Clark Lea's up this morning after his first spring practice as Vanderbilt head coach. And as always, just a reminder to subscribe to vandysports.com. $9.95 a month if you sign up for a year. That's where you get all the quality, in-depth, behind-the-scenes, juicy details about Vanderbilt basketball, football, and baseball, and recruiting as well. So hit us up at vandysports.com and subscribe. And always click the subscribe button here. Hit the like button for notifications. Whenever we drop new videos, you will get a notification. You'll be able to view those right away. So with that being said, spring roster preview. Obviously said Vanderbilt's first spring practice in the books. Not a lot going around on because, well, they don't have any numbers to, Justin, so they got to earn them. So.
Well, I've seen some people talk about if you don't have numbers, and it makes it a little bit difficult to pick who's who when you're watching film.
Yeah.
So there may be a guy or two that gets ripped a new one. That's really not him on film. So the other guy that actually did it's probably over there like, yeah, here we go. Let's keep this up. But,
might make some film room follies, huh? You know,
very possible. But it's definitely a page out of the old Tim Corbin book there. So
right. So interesting to see how that all unfolds, but we'll be following that throughout the spring. I think media will be allowed to have some access, watch a little bit of spring throughout, so we'll have that covered for you guys. But we'll talk about defensive backs, cornerbacks, safeties in this video, and I will flip the screen here. And Justin, here we are. Let me move this around. My editing tool's in the way. So, defensive backs, cornerbacks. This is kind of what they're listed on the roster, and this is who we got coming back. Justin, I'm just gonna kind of scroll through here. Give me your thoughts on, I guess, each individual. Starting with Alan George, who's coming back for a fifth year. Just talk about what you like about him and where you kind of see these guys fitting in terms of starters, backups, things of that nature.
Well, before we get into position as far as the guys that are going to start and do those things, one is going to be interesting what they do scheme wise defensively, and from what we've seen from these guys, especially when you start talking about corners, and me and you talked about this before we started this, but it was a whole lot of Derek Mason was all about we're going to play top down, we're going to get a lot of length at corner, and typically what that ended up being is playing a 8 to 10 yard cushion with giving up any amount of quick game that you possibly could, which there's people that do that. They make sure, hey, you're not going to beat us deep, we're going to give you the quick game and do those things. Typically as an offensive person, I like when people do that, because if you have a quarterback that's young or inexperienced, usually you can get them in a rhythm and get the confidence going by just throwing quick game and those things. So, it's going to be interesting to see how Clark Lea and new defense coordinator, kind of what their philosophy on those things are. So
you mentioned quick game. I'll chime in here and give the key stat. A lot of opposing teams took advantage of the Vanderbilt secondary quick game. Vanderbilt's defense ranked 119th nationally last year in passing defense, and gave up 294 yards a game. So obviously toward the bottom of the national rankings in passing defense. So a lot to be desired coming into this season. A lot of improvement to be made. That's for sure.
Right. And something else that we talked about with the defensive line video is, and it goes into the secondary play as well, because, we talked about how running backs are affected by the offensive line. Your secondary, a lot of times, is affected by who's playing up front on the defensive line. And if you're not getting much of a pass rush, then that puts those guys on the back end in a tough spot. But, as we're going down through here and just looking at the names that you got, Alan George, he's a guy that is he's started for the majority of his Vanderbilt career. He's done a really good job. He's been the one consistent guy that they've had outside at corner. He had his old former high school teammate B.J. Anderson was the starter in 2019. I'm guessing he was an opt-out this past year. Right. In 2020, where he didn't play. He had some decent moments there in 2019. And then you got Jalen Mahoney there. That's somebody I'm really excited about. I think, he always tends to show up and makes plays. It hasn't always been, I think he's played some corner. I think he's played some safety. The majority of his work since he's been at Vanderbilt has been mostly from the nickel position. And he's a pretty physical kid. He tackles well in space. But he's it just seems like he's got a little more, speed, a little twitchier than some of the other guys that Vanderbilt's had on the back end at times. And then as you go down through there, Gabe Judy, he's somebody that when I first saw him in practice, somebody that I was impressed with just as far as his length and some of the things that he had going for him. Last year, it was kind of sporadic and kind of his playing time. You really didn't see him a whole lot. I don't know if he was hurt or what the deal was. He might have been behind some of your other guys like Elijah Hamilton and some of those. But, he had his first career interception against Tennessee. I thought he played well against Mississippi State when I watched that game as well. And then as you go on down through here, then you start getting into the guys that played last year as a true freshman. Right. And then you're going to talk about Donovan Kaufman. I know you might want to talk about him a little bit, but you could definitely tell in the Texas A&M game that this kid right here is not normal. He can absolutely play the game of football and play it at a high level. And, just the fact of getting him back, and it's going to be really interesting to see what Clark Lea does with him, because I think his skill set is extremely versatile, that he could do a whole lot of things. But if he didn't have the situation that he had where he couldn't finish the season this past year, losing him really hurt that secondary.
Right.
And I just thought that playing against Texas A&M, just the way he was, his ability to tackle and cover and all of those things that he has as a defensive back, just his instincts, Clark Lea is going to have a whole lot of fun coaching him over the next, 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, obviously a lot of buzz with Kaufman, even going into last year, but he obviously proved it. I mean, 2 games played, 15 tackles, 1 pass breakup. Obviously effective on kickoff returns as well, 27 yards per return. Unfortunately, he didn't, only played 2 games, couldn't come back. But there's a lot of hype around him last year, and definitely going to be this year. I think that's going to be a key young cog for them in the secondary for sure. It's definitely living up to the billing coming out of high school for Vanderbilt. That's for sure.
Right, and then when he was a recruit, the things that we heard about him was, maybe he doesn't have the size, he doesn't have the prototypical 4-star football player size. But this guy's just a football player. That's what he is. Right. He's consistently making plays, and then you see him on Saturdays here, and he definitely fits the bill for that. So, Well, if you go on down through here and you look at your other two true freshmen that played this past year, you had Chase Lloyd, who played some safety. He filled in there nicely. I think he's a bigger body, very similar to Ricky Wright, which is somebody that we talked about in the linebacker video because they have him listed on the roster as an athlete. So,
Right.
Times that he played at safety this past year, he made some plays while he was in there. But those are both two bigger body type kids that if you wanted to add more speed defensively and you had that opportunity, could possibly move down to linebacker. I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying that you would have that possibility to do that with. Chase Lloyd, he kind of got thrown in the fire last year, maybe not necessarily when he needed to be,
Right.
but he did show some positive signs there and had some quality tackles. With 7 tackles against South Carolina, he did some things there as well. So that does give you kind of a young trio there that you can build upon for your secondary.
Right, it's a pretty good layout just in terms. Now I'll exclude the Ricky Wright because, like I said, maybe he plays safety, maybe he plays linebacker. You never, he's listed as an athlete, so obviously Vanderbilt kind of likes him in different spots. But when you really look at it, you've got Alan George, you've got Jalen Mahoney, you've got B.J. Anderson, who's intriguing because he just, he opted out last year, but he was a 9-game starter in 2019. So
Right.
you've got a trio of veterans, you've got a trio of young guys. So that's pretty intriguing for your defensive backs and cornerback positions right there. So it's a good little mix. So we'll slide down the safeties, Justin, and we'll talk about these guys. These are the 4 listed on the roster at safety. So if you go ahead and just talk, we'll start with Desean Jerkins, obviously one of Vanderbilt's bigger playmakers on defense.
Well, when we talked about this for a little bit too. When you go back and you look at Derek Mason's kind of his recruiting philosophy, he kind of had it the opposite of what some people look at nowadays. Which I mean, it's just whatever you like. But a lot of times he wanted length at corner, and then sometimes you would have shorter guys that were really physical that played safety. Typically, that's kind of the way that he did his recruiting portion. And Desean Jerkins was one of those guys that, he kind of fits the bill for that. And as you can see there from his things that he did this past season, he had a solid season playing in the back end for Vanderbilt. And then you got Max Worship, who is somebody that I've been really high on since he's been at Vanderbilt. I just think that he's been productive when he's got the opportunity to play.
Mm-hmm.
He's a really physical guy, and he comes downhill really well. And somebody that can tackle in space as well as he does. I just think that that's something that helps your defense out tremendously. And then you got Brendan Harris, who is a in-state product that was a one-time Tennessee commit. He finally got an opportunity to be on the field some this past year. As you can see, he had 10 tackles versus Mississippi State and Tennessee. He had a solid showing while he was out there. He does some good things as well. Again, he's one of those that, he's not your prototypical 6'3", 6'4" type safety that does things, but, he was able to be pretty good in coverage and it's going to be interesting to see what his role is this next year. And then you got Justin Harris here is a guy that when he came in, he could be a safety or could be a corner. Teams recruited him as either one, so he's kind of got the speed element there to help his game. So when you're looking at it and you're looking at this group here, I just think that Donovan Kaufman is more likely going to end up being one of your safeties. So who is going to be the other guy? And it helps here that you got this many guys that's got experience. Um, which one, takes the starting position? I'm not sure on that. I just think the two that you look at as far as defensive back wise, and you think, oh, well, there's probably a good shot that they're going to end up starting is Alan George, and then you got Donovan Kaufman. And then you got all of these other guys here that's got a lot of playing experience and done those things. And it'll be interesting to see who comes out on top there.
Yeah, and also just players I didn't include on this was obviously the early enrollees, which includes John Howes, who's a guy that we're high on, the kid that came out of Brentwood Academy, or not Brentwood Academy, but
Brentwood High School.
Yes,
that's fighting words right there now.
Yeah, no, man. I just started a riot.
Don't be doing that in Brentwood. Now.
I just started a riot right there, man.
Yeah, that ain't good.
And
disrespecting.
Yeah.
Brentwood High School there.
I make one mistake in this video, and it's so critical. I just started. I just started a civil war.
Don't call me out on mine, please.
Just started a civil war in Brentwood right there. Tyson Russell as well, the other DB that's in early for Vanderbilt, so they get to experience spring practice, get an early start on things. So there's your DB corner breakdown and secondary. So anything else you want to add, Justin, before we head out of here?
Well, one thing I do like about the defensive back unit is there is a lot of experience involved with that group. Mm-hmm. And, maybe it's not good experience, all right, because you just said, the numbers there. But
it's, hey, man, we need some bodies out there last year because that's kind of how it was. You had the opt-outs and you had injuries. And, you had, we mentioned Chase Lloyd getting thrown in there and,
right.
Maybe Justin Harris as well. So guys, you look at all those guys and they got starts, and like I said, they might not be quality starts, but at least they've got a lot of experience in starting SEC games and things like that. So that goes a long way, especially in the long run of things.
It does. And this is definitely not the same, but when I started coaching at Gordonsville High School, I came in.
Same level of football right there.
Yeah, very, very much so. But they had went 3-7 the year before and were not good on offense at all. But a lot of those kids had played that year. So when I came in and but go into the next year, the transition was just so much better because it wasn't, hey, I'm learning a new system and I'm playing for the very first time. They had already been out there, had that experience, and now it was just, fine-tuning their game and getting better. So, maybe it could help them out as well. And just like you're talking about, somebody like Chase Lloyd, that experience is going to help him in the long run. The one thing you don't want to do is kill confidence where they don't have any. Yeah. That's the issue that you run into. But as long as it doesn't kill their confidence and they're able to, continue to just get better and better, then it's okay. So,
yeah. All right. Well, that's a look at the secondary for Vanderbilt. Thank you all once again for watching our spring practice preview, even though it's already going on. But hey, well, we do the best we can. Reminder to subscribe. Reminder to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the notification bell when these videos drop, which will probably drop later tonight, which is Wednesday, by the way. And then we'll drop more throughout the week. You will know about them right away, and you'll be able to watch them as soon as you can. And obviously, if you're not a subscriber to VandySports.com, please do so. It is $9.95 a month if you subscribe for a year. And with that being said, Justin Angel, Sean Williams, until the next video. See you guys.